Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hopefully you guys are doing well. We are back on the Coxton sub today, running the Biliary Local. We've got quite a bit of work to do. We've got some lists from the Yard Master we'll look at here in just a second. But this is going to be a long one, so if it gets too long, we might do a part 2. We'll see how it goes. But I think this will be fun to explore, so stay tuned. Well, we just got off the radio with the Yard Master, and here is the list of work that we have today. First thing we're going to do is take all the cars that are tagged with BIW, BIE, BIF, and BIC. We're going to grab those off of track 6 and spot them onto track 7. Those are going to be the first bit of cars we're going to take with us in our local today. So we kind of break this local into two parts. Those cars that are going down to the west side of town, over where the riverport is, and those going to the east side of town. It's still the same job, run by the same crew, but it's done in two parts just because of access and needing to be out of the way of any incoming trains through the main. Step 2, we're going to take any cars bound for the BIM, the BIS, BIL, and the BIG and set those out onto track 6. Most of them are currently sitting on track 6, so they'll be spot back on track 6. The third thing is we'll work track 7 in order to get all of those pickups and setouts worked. And we're going to do that partly because we expect the southbound manifest train to be coming through at that time, and the yard is going to need us out of the way so they can work on the east end of the yard here. And so that's why we're going to be focused on the west end, and we're not even going to be anywhere near the main line. Step 4, after that's done, we'll come back to the yard, drop those cars off for the trim crew to work, and then we will grab the cars that are on track 6 and we'll go work the east end of town. And then lastly, once we get all that done, we will come back into the yard. We'll cut those off on the west end of town for the trim crew to work again, and then we will go over to track 8 and pull all of those cars on track 8 and then just spot them on track 6, and that will be the end of our workday. So pretty good pull job today. Quite a bit of work to do, so here we go. We will get rolling on all of this fun stuff. First thing we're going to do here is set our caboose out on track 7. We will be building the first bit of our train on track 7, and so it makes sense to put the caboose here because then we can shove all of our cars into and up to the caboose and then get it all built there on track 7 so that we can get it on the west end of the yard. Alright, here we are pulling our cars out of track 6. We've got the car tags on so we can take a look at where everything is going. And we're right now only worried about the first 3 letters. Really actually just the third letter because all of these are going to be BI for the first 2 letters for Biliary. But we're looking at the first 3 letters. We're not worried about the numbers just yet. That just represents the track at the respective industry. That can all be sorted out later. So looking for BIWs, BIEs, BIFs, and BICs to be set out on track 7. The reason that we mentioned the BIWs, BIEs, BICs, and BIFs is because those are all the cars that are heading to the west side of town, which is the part we're going to work first. And we're going to put those on track 7 since track 7 is open. And then any car that is tagged BI but is not the 4 that we mentioned, those will all be left on track 6. And when we finish up working the west side of town and we come back to Munson Yard, we can then grab all those cars on track 6 and go work the east side of town. So the east side of town is considerably easier to work. It's also, you don't have to travel quite as far. But there are industries outside of about 1.5 miles to the east and the west of the city of Biliary that are worked by the local here. So we do actually have to get on the main a little bit when we go to the east side of town, but when we're on the west side of town, we'll be pretty much completely isolated from the rest of the railroad, which is not too bad. Let's just kind of do our own thing and not worry about anybody else. Didn't get to kick a lot of cars here, but did kick that one. Fortunately, didn't kick it too fast. Haven't practiced my kicking skills a lot lately, so sometimes you kick them too fast and they derail. Fortunately, it didn't happen this time. But we've got a big shove here to get some cars out of the way, and then we're going to keep on sorting. So as is customary, I like to turn the speed up while we do the switching and the sorting, and try to keep the camera view where it is consistent as much as possible, just because this is the part that is good to see everything that's going on, but I don't want to spend 20 minutes watching it. So Altogether today, for the first half of this job, spent probably about 4 hours running it, which is fantastic. That is exactly what I enjoy about this train. Is it's time consuming, it's complicated, it makes me think and plan. But as is always the case, as you operate things, you realize all the things you do wrong, all the things you can do better, and you make notes about operating in the future. So definitely had a lot of fun, trying to figure all this out today. This was my first time running this local, even though I've had everything sit out here in Biliary for a long time. So definitely a good learning experience, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it as much as I do as we continue to see stuff get done and talk about all the work we did. We are very close here to getting everything sorted out. A lot of bulkheads, gondolas, boxcars, and reefers come in through Biliary. Biliary also has a big warehouse where we do some less than carload and things like that, and it just gets a lot of boxcar traffic. Well, now that we have reconnected back to all of our cars on track 7, we're going to go ahead and pull forward here. Right now, since we're heading to the west end of town, we're just going to pull these out of Monson Yard, clear the yard completely, and then we'll be able to back up into Starkey Yard, which is a small auxiliary yard over to the south. And once we get there, we'll talk about how we need to kind of break the train apart, rearrange a few cars here and there, and get everything in order for our moves. Alright, so planning ahead a bit here, we have gone ahead and split our train so that they'll fit onto a couple of the yard tracks here. This is mostly so that we can easily run around if we need to, or get some access to different cars. But currently we have mostly on the first track there to the right, we have cars going to the gasworks here in town. So I'll slide over for just a second and talk briefly about the gasworks, and then we'll start doing some switching. Alright, so here in Biliary we do have the gasworks. It has the tag of BIC. It's got 3 tracks. It basically takes coal in, ships coke out, and also ships out coal tar and some other chemical that I forgot off the top of my head, but I think it's used in the fertilizer industry. If I remember later, I'll add it in there. But yeah, so basically we've got tank car loads out, coke loads out, and coal loads in. Further on down the port branch, we've got the west dock here in Biliary this is the east dock, so this is BIE. The east dock exclusively loads reefers with perishables and other traffic coming from up the river, and then we take those loaded reefers usually down to Coxton, either to Nice Perishables, which was featured in a previous Louisville-Nashville video, or over to the ice plant over on the Santa Fe to get ice when we used those ice reefers back in the day. So now they mostly just head over tonight's perishables to be warehoused and whatnot. So, but that is what we do here on the east dock. Here we are at the west dock in Biliary, and this is where we have some loading for flats. We can store some cars here. I do believe that's why we have the gondolas here. I think they're just sitting in storage. This dock does not get a lot of traffic, but we can set out and pick up either empty or loaded flat cars here, depending on what kind of traffic is going up and down the river. And lastly here, we have the fastener mill here in Biliary. So this is on the same spur that heads over to the western dock. And so here we basically take in steel loads, we ship out scrap, we also take in lumber and other loaded items through boxcars, and then basically what we ship out is we ship out different forms of metallic, wooden, or non-metallic fasteners. And this can be used pretty much in any major industry across the route. So this route does ship a lot of car loads to other industries on the route itself. And I will say one qualifier for all the industries you're looking at today, I do have reworks to do, improvements, and final details. So everything you're seeing right now is just preliminary, and quite possibly a lot of it's going to change. Alright, so here we have a brief overview of the facilities in Biliary. We've got Monson Yard over to the right, where all the tracks are. We've got Starkey Yard is the small 4 tracks that kind of curves off to the south. North is up, by the way. South is down. And then we have, in order, heading from Starkey Yard heading south, we've got the coke mill, or sorry, not the coke mill. We've got the gasworks. And then the port branch actually loops around and under the main line to the left, so this is to the west. and then it comes down here to a little siding. You've got, if you continue north, you hit the east dock, and then if you head to the west or the south, according to how the train will drive, then you'll eventually get over to the fastener mill and the eastern dock. And so accessing those two industries on the west side of town is quite challenging and has to be done in parts. So for our work today, we're going to do ourselves a huge favor, and we're going to put any cars bound for the east dock and the fastener mill at the end of our cut of cars that we're going to take with us, so that they are easily accessible when we get over to the siding that you see kind of up in the northwestern corner. So first up, we're going to go ahead and connect to this boxcar here on the first track, and the 7 cars in front of that are all headed to the gasworks, and so we're going to go ahead and work the gasworks first. Do have a nice gentle shove of about a quarter of a mile to get over to the gasworks. So all the industries you see in the camera frame right now were served by the railroad once upon a time, and so we have just a dead spur that goes over there, but we don't actually have any rail access to it. So we do have to cross over this overpass here in order to get officially onto the port branch. Alright, first we will grab the loaded hoppers that are loaded with coke. Those are going to head over to the steel mill in Johnsville. And the second thing we're going to do is step over to the next track and grab those open hoppers and move those onto track 1, which is the one we're leaving right now. Alright, now we've got those 4 empties. We're going to pull those up and shove those over onto track 1, cut them loose, and then we've got to figure out how to get back to the first 4 loaded hoppers that we have, because those are bringing the coal into the gasworks to be dropped off here to turn into coke. Well, as we pull away here, we have currently all of our cars sitting on track 1, and that's just temporary so we can get these 4 hoppers that we're pulling away with onto track 2. There's just enough space, even though it doesn't look like it from this angle, and then we will get those in, cut them off, and go back and grab those 3 hoppers to take with us. The 3 that are loaded. And here we are, leaving those 4 coal hoppers sitting on track 2. Now we're going to grab those 3 on track 1 that are loaded with coke and go work the last spur here at the gasworks, which involves all the tank cars. Alright, now we're heading over to the last spur here with the tank cars, and we'll talk about that when we get there. Due to space limitations, we are going to go ahead and pull all of our cars out currently and set them over here to the left on the port branch. Just because there's not quite enough space to get these 3 hoppers and the 4 tank cars are going to pick up out of the way of the switch. Well, I'm going to be honest, this switch here definitely needs a bit of a rework. It's insanely too tight. I could require the use of like a buffer car, but I'm not going to do that. So just bear with me as we watch this horrifically sharp turn, and just remember that we're going to fix this pretty soon in the future. Alright, and here we are getting our 4 pickups. We're going to take those out back to the port branch and grab our 3 tank cars that we're setting out and bring those back. Alright, so all of our pickups from the gasworks are going to get left here in Starkey Yard for now. And we're going to go ahead and make a few rearrangements on the rest of our train here and continue on down the port branch. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pull these flats out of the way and go grab that boxcar. It's going to be the next thing that you see. Since these are going to the Eastern Riverport and the Fastener Mill, we want to get those, like we said earlier, want to get those to the front of our train. The reason for this is because we have a lead over there that makes it pretty tight, and it's not very long, so we'll show that here a little bit later, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about. We're going to go ahead and grab those reefers now and pull those reefers out, and those reefers will go behind the flat cars. I did realize after I said just that previous statement just then, I realized that actually I was wrong, that we're going to put the reefers in front. That way, whenever we get to the part where we're going, the flat cars and the boxcar will be at the back, which is actually what we want. I do apologize for getting that mixed up. I think originally I had it in my mind they needed to be at the front, but then I realized I was wrong, and we fixed it. So the operations were correct. My speech was was incorrect, so it's all good. But here we are headed down the port branch. This is crossing under the main line just before the crossing over the Arkansas River. So the main line does cross the Arkansas River just there to the right. And I'm going to go ahead and put a high-speed time lapse as we travel down the port branch here. So the nice thing about operating your routes before you say that they're finished is you can realize all the lovely things you need to do to fix it. So going down this port branch, it reminded me just how much work this area still needs, and that's fine. I haven't actually gotten to this part of the route yet for some of the fine detailing, so I'm not in the least bit surprised that there is plenty of work that needs to be done. But here we are getting to the siding, and this siding serves to just help us run around the train as we need in order to complete our switching moves. We also are going to try our best not to block any crossings, so you're going to see us split the train right here, and then later on as we come in on the other track, we'll do the same thing and split the train on the other track as well. So this is another area where we need a ton of work. I might go ahead and hand lay some roads here anyways, even though I keep talking about how much I don't want to do that. But now we're going to go ahead and complete our runaround. Once we get to the other side of the train, we will connect up to the caboose, and we're going to leave those reefers here because those are going to the E-stock. And we're going to grab the flat cars and the boxcar and head over to the west stock and the fastener mill. So here we're looking at the spur that goes to the fastener mill and the western side of town on the west stock. And I'll speed up the switching, which is my typical fashion. So we're going to pick up those two boxcars, pick up all the gondolas and the two flat cars from the steel track, shove all those back onto the spur, and then put our boxcar back and put our 4 flat cars over on the west stock, which is where we're headed right now. Once we get around to the west stock, we're going to pull all of the cars that are here. The west stock is used for storage sometimes, so we're going to get those kind of out of the way so we can set out our 4 flat cars, and now we are leaving the west stock. So the only issue is you have to be careful. There's a lead right to the left here that's just long enough for about 7 or 8 cars. If you get short cars, you can get about 9 in there, but you just have to be careful. And here we are backing up. Fortunately, that was a close call, but actually an accident. I haven't put my traffic stoppers in yet, so stuff happens. But we're backing up here to set these out, and we're going to leave these here. We're going to go ahead and brake the train again, but we're going to leave all of these pickups on this track and grab the reefers, shove those back, and work the E-stock. If for whatever reason I decide not to hand lay the roads, I'm at least going to replace those road splines with different ones. Kind of get rid of that deserty texture on the side of the spline. Alright, here we are at the E-stock. So we're going to go ahead and grab our 4 pickups, and we'll do a little bit of car shuffling. Typically what happens is you've got 2 tracks where cars are loaded, and you've got 1 track where cars are stored waiting to be put on the loading tracks. So typically we will pick up off the load tracks, and we'll grab the cars from storage and we'll shove those over to the track where we just picked up. So that's what we're doing right now. We're going to leave some cars here. Then any cars we brought with us are going to get left on the storage track over there on the right. And then now we're just going to shove back so we can get some space for the caboose and get around the caboose because we need him on the tail end. So we'll grab our 4 pickups that we temporarily set on track 1 and grab our caboose, and now we're heading out. So last thing to do, we go ahead and go grab all of these gondolas, flat cars, and box cars, and we pull forward. We will then back up, reconnect to the reefers, and then we'll be ready to head back to Monson Yard. All right, and just off in the distance, we can see the southbound manifest coming across the Arkansas River. Looks like we've got an Alco RSD-15, an RS-11, and another RSD-15. Not a bad lineup. So this southbound manifest train will come into Monson Yard. When he gets in the Monson Yard, he will cut off any cars that he has bound for any location served by Monson Yard in Biliary. And what's called a block swap. So we'll take a cut of cars, we'll drop those off in the yard, and then we will pick up any cars going southbound. And since there's about 5,000 feet of cars in Monson Yard waiting to go southbound, we're definitely not going to grab them all, but we will grab as many as we can. I think it turns out at around like 1,800 feet or so of cars that we pick up. But right around here is the area where we will cut the train when we get to the yard. I think that BN car is the last one that goes here in Biliary today. So back to our local, we're going to go ahead and head on north, or not north, it's railroad north, but we're actually directionally heading south temporarily. But by the time we make our way back up the port branch, we will be heading north again. Nice thing about this train is no matter what's going on the main line, we are currently free to do as we please. So no signals, no need for dispatcher just yet. But once we get up to Starkey Yard, we'll have to radio in and see what's going on. So here we are looking at the tail end of the manifest train coming into Monson Yard. Pretty much all of these cars are going to stay on the train and they're going to continue south to Coxton. A lot of these cars will be heading off to like Louisville, Nashville, Santa Fe, KCS, or different locations there in Coxton. Here's a nice view of the, let's see, this would be the east end of Monson Yard as the manifest train pulls his cut of cars out to be set out here in the yard. So got about a minute left. Just wanted to say thanks again for watching. Please stay tuned for more videos. I will most certainly do a part 2 of the Biliary Local because this is only the first half of all the work. But here you are getting a good look at everything here around Monson and Starkey Yard. So please make sure to like the video if you haven't. It really helps out. Leave a comment if you have any questions or things that stuck out to you. And if you find it extremely interesting, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. That'd be awesome. I love when you guys subscribe. But, you know, it's whatever you guys want to do. As long as you enjoy it and it's meaningful to you, that's really what matters. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and stop the train here in the Starkey Yard lead because we have been told the dispatcher we are not clear to get into Monson Yard yet. So this is where I'll leave you guys for next time. Take care, and we'll see you later.